Welcome to the Fancy A BREW podcast. I'm Andy the Northern Diver. In this series I'll be discussing adventure, conservation and progression in scuba diving with some really interesting and inspirational divers that you might or not have heard of. The podcast is supported by Northern Diver International and you the listener through Patreon. So grab yourself a brew and enjoy this week's episode. Alright, so Series 2, Episode 5, Craig Eley. Welcome to Fancy Brew Podcast. I've got a beer. What have you got?
I have got tea. Unfortunately, it's, yeah.
I thought you were, when you mentioned it the other day, you might have a bottle of wine. I was like, it's a bit romantic this. So I've gone with beer just in case you did bring wine because no one will talk.
I've took it back down to tea, yeah. No, I've got a bit of a bad tummy, so I've laid off the alcohol.
Oh, poor baby.
I think I've overindulged a little bit over Christmas. And then I'm going to talk about nutrition, and there's me saying I've eaten too many pigs in blankets.
Oh, mate. I've been drinking caffeine-free tea bags.
Oh, yeah.
I've run out of them, so I've only got proper ones, so I'm expected to not get any sleep tonight. So I thought, I've got to stop now. And there was a beer in the fridge, so I'm going to smash that down my neck.
I intermittently sort of come off caffeine. I have like sort of a 2 or 3 week period where I completely stop it just to sort of, just to detox myself from caffeine sometimes. And God, man, I get a headache, such a bad headache for that first week. But, it makes it better when you start drinking it again.
Yeah, she didn't tell me. I was suffering for about a week. I'm like, definitely going to die. I've got coronavirus or something I was coming out with. And she's like, no, I've just switched your tea bags the other day and you've not told me. Like, you bitch. It was horrendous. But them headaches are horrible.
Yeah, it's really bad, isn't it? I drink a lot of coffee as well, so for my sins. And that my caffeine addiction is probably my worst addiction, I would say.
There's definitely worse ones to have, isn't there?
Yeah, sure.
So give us a little intro to who you are, how we met, why I've got you on, and obviously don't give too much away because we'll have.
Well, I don't really know why you got me on too much because I'm basically just considering myself an average diver, really. We met just through comments, didn't we, on social media? I think. You were sort of side mount diver. I was sort of fairly new to side mount myself, and we sort of hit it off. I think. You're moving. A lot of the things you look like you're moving towards is something I'm quite envious of, and I'm trying to add to my skills and get involved in various things. And so I think we got on quite well, didn't we?
Nice. So what's with your sort of Instagram handle, Spud Cook? Where's that come from?
I Spud Cook. You know what it's like when you're trying to think of a name for something, and it's impossible. And you type in half a dozen things, and they're all taken. So. Spud was the name of my first dog, who's sadly not with us, and Kook is my childhood nickname because I was mad into surfing for I still surf a lot, but I was surfing from 5 years old. So everybody, and Kook is in surfing world. Kook is somebody who wears all the gear and doesn't actually surf, and so everyone sort of called me that, even though I did surf every minute that I had. But that was just my nickname. So I put them together, and no one else had had it because it was so weird. So that's what I used.
Yeah, I think another thing we came together on is we both listened to the same side mount podcast, didn't we?
Oh yeah. Well, that's how I got started with side mount, really. To be honest, I can't remember why I think it was I didn't get into side mount because of cave diving at all. That sort of just sort of goes hand in hand, but. I just was having real problems. I had a shoulder surgery and I was having real problems with shutdowns and stuff. And I just was looking at other sort of things, and side mount came up, and and then I sort of looked up some instructors, and that podcast with Steve came up, and then I started listening to all those podcasts, and it's good. So
What made you go for a back mounted rebreather then?
Because I trained on a rebreather 10 years ago originally. Right. Everyone had inspos then. All my friends had inspos, and the guy, my instructor at the time, he was an inspo instructor, and he took me for all my open circuit technical training. So it just, he could get me a good deal from AP, and that's why I got trained with that, really. And then I've gone back to an AP because that's what I knew. I was already trained. I was confident. I had well over 100 hours on it. So that's what I went back to. Whether or not I stick with it, I don't know, because there's so many other shiny ones out there now. So I'm really loving the side mount ones, I've got to admit, to see, and because I dive side mount a lot of times now, I do like the sidewinder. I've got to admit, that does look cool.
Talk me through your sort of timeline of diving then, from start to today, almost.
Okay, well, like I started about 15 years ago, so 2006, I think. I'm probably going to annoy you because my first diving experience was in Egypt, like a lot of people. But my girlfriend, or my wife actually at the time, she said, right, because I was mental into climbing, surfing and everything. So she said, right, we're going to book us a family holiday, and you can't do anything. It's just a beach holiday. We can't do nothing. You know, you can't. I even took my rock climbing shoes because I thought, there might be some rocks in Egypt. It's really deserty or whatever. Yeah. And then anyway, so I was bored, and we were on the way over there in the plane, and the in-flight magazine was a dive magazine, I remember, and I was just sort of flicking through it. I never even crossed my mind to scuba dive, even though I've spent my life in the sea, surfing and whatnot. I was flicking through it, and I thought, that was quite cool, but I put it down. Anyway, you know, on those package holidays, you have the welcome meeting on the first day. Yeah. We had a dive instructor, a PADI dive instructor, a guy called Gary Chambers. He was a lovely bloke, and he came in, he started talking about diving. I was like, I actually quite like the sound of that. I'm going to go and have a chat with him after. So I went after, had a chat with him, and he said, come to the pool later, have a go. And so I went to the pool later on, and my missus at the time was sat around the thing, put a reg in my mouth, put my head under the water, instantly was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I loved it instantly, like I really did. And then I booked myself on my open water course, completed it that week. I was only there for a week, but then I had a couple of days on the boat, did a couple of dives with them, and then came back to England, straight on the internet, booked my advanced, or contacted Cornish Diving in Falmouth, went down there, did my advanced, met a really good, cool guy, a guy called James Croker, who's now big into GUE down in New Zealand. And basically, long story short, bought a van, lived in Falmouth for the next 8 months, went right through to divemaster, and I don't know how many dives I did in that first year, but it was 300 or 400, I think, in that first year, just 4 or 5 dives a day. Jeez. Sometimes more, in the pools. I absolutely loved it. I was just sleeping in my van on Bar Road in Falmouth. Yeah, I loved it. And then, that can't go on forever, obviously, because I was working. I was a tree surgeon at the time. So I joined like local BSAC clubs back up my way in North Devon. Sort of slowly got involved with the technical sort of side of things. Went through to I think I kind of like did the sort of zero to hero thing, like a lot of people do. Got qualified up to sort of Open Circuit Trimix, and then started paying for Trimix bills, and realised, and that was like, and then sort of rebreathers seemed to be really coming in around then, like with the AP and stuff. And so I think I got left a bit of money. One of my grandparents passed away, and I had this chunk of money sat in the bank account, and I was just like, yeah, let's get a rebreather. Got trained, and then spent the next few years just racking up dives, racking up hours, and then I basically got a lot of people do is I got a bit burnt out with the UK. I did too much. I was in NDAC, doing hours of decompression and just thinking, what am I doing? And that coincided also with the birth of my daughter. And obviously, we all know what happens then. Your time gets, and money gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And I just got a bit burnt out with UK diving, like a lot of people do. And so but a lot of people just give up. I didn't give up. I just sort of got rid of my sort of UK stuff, and then just went on sort of liveaboards 2 or 3 times a year, and foreign holidays, and still I was still doing a lot of diving, really, I suppose, in terms of numbers, but I was only sort of doing it. And I traveled, went back to basically single tank diving, and just what I really enjoyed again. And then I did that for quite a few years, really, and then sort of more recently, sort of slowly sort of trickling back in. But I always kept saying to myself, I've got to just enjoy it. If I'm not enjoying it, then I'm just going to like pack it in. But I've been enjoying it more and more and more and more. And then I was just sort of, I spent some time working as a DM as well, the first time round. So I got a bit burnt out with, 3, 4, 5 meter dives on the beaches, helping people in with kit and out. And, that was probably the main reason for the burnout, to be quite honest. But yeah, coming back to more recently, sort of slowly started getting back into technical diving and that, and then had the problems with the twin set, so looked into side mount, and then I was lucky enough to find a really good instructor, Michael Thomas, and he trained me really well, really enjoyed it. And then obviously I sort of started being exposed to sort of the caves and more the mines to start with, to be honest. And I always thought I would hate it. I always thought I was claustrophobic. You know, I always shied away from going inside wrecks and all that sort of stuff. I didn't mind the deeper stuff, but yeah, I was terrified for years. I was terrified of going inside wrecks, absolutely, and I always thought I was claustrophobic. And then I'm not a wreckhead at all. Like I never really cared about wrecks or anything like that. I was always looking for reefs. Like I'd be Googling on the internet, like, oh, the best reef systems. You know, my favourite dives were like Hat Rock and Hand Deeps at Plymouth, and you know, these big like pinnacles. And I've done a lot of diving at Lundy also, and that's a lot of sort of like sheer drop offs, like the null pins and stuff like that. Always loved it. And then all of a sudden the penny dropped that the best formations are in caves and underground. So then I sort of made some inquiries and, you know, started moving towards the caves and stuff. Started with mines, and then sort of slowly got into caves. Wanted to do cave diving, and then, you know, and that's where it brings me to where I am now. I'm really right at the start of all that, really. I'm very inexperienced with the caves, but I'm getting into it, getting into the dry caving as well now. So,
do you have a preference between diving a cave and diving a mine, or is it cave specific, mine specific? One would be better than the other because it's that particular one.
If you'd asked me this a few months ago, I would have said mines, but that was because I hadn't really dived many caves, and well, I still haven't. But you know, the more I get into it, the more the caves are drawing me in towards that sort of side of things. Because I don't know why, really. Because I keep thinking I won't like it, and then I try it and I like it. So it's a bit like that, really. But yeah, I've got to say, I haven't dived in the sea for about 6 months now. So it really seems to be going that way for me at the moment. Whether that's just because it's exciting and it's new, I don't know. But
see, for me, to progress to that, firstly, I don't live in that neck of the woods, and secondly, I don't potentially have anyone local with me that I could go diving with. That kind of diving that I perhaps wouldn't have to pay. Like, there's instructors that do it, but I don't always want to go diving with an instructor. I want a buddy that I could, you know, can go and do the kind of diving I enjoy regularly.
Yeah.
The outlay. So for me, I'm not quite there yet. Obviously.
Yeah. It's difficult finding people to go with. To start with was the hardest thing. And luckily, Mike had some groups that he'd sort of set up because everybody would come and train with him, and then they would all say, "I've got no one to dive with." And so he set up these groups, and then you slowly meet people and. You know, it was quite tricky to get people to start with, but now I've got like quite a good little network of people, and you know, some of them are really good. They've become, I mean, Mike in himself's fantastic, and his son Rob. You know, he's become a good friend now, and you know, I can highly recommend him to anyone who wants any sort of training underground or any really. So, that's where I am at the moment. Really, I'm just trying to build up confidence. Go on.
Yeah. What about the CDG then? Is that for you? Do you think? Is that where you're going?
Yeah. That's my sort of, I say, you know, short-term goal in the next year. I'm slowly starting to do some sump diving, and you know, the way that they dive is, you know, I know some of the members, Mike included, and you know, their way of diving is set up for the UK sump diving and, you know, caves, and you know, who better to learn from than those guys? So that's sort of my immediate goal, which hopefully will happen in the new year. COVID, it's not ideal, is it really? We're just hoping that it sort of passes and the vaccine works, and so we can just get back to life.
See, mate, you never know, do
you? Yeah.
If someone was following you on Instagram and that, they can clearly see that you're sort of big into your caving. You seem to be in a boiler suit with an RDAT or a climbing rig all the time.
Yeah.
And then your fitness is massive. And certainly last night when I was trolleying through over the last year or two, you know, you're doing some pretty epic stuff in regards fitness, you know, like jump press ups and all this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, you look like flipping Superman, you're about a foot off ground. So I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You know, clearly diving and fitness should really go together, and I don't think they do enough. Some of the people you see on dive sites, perhaps you kind of worry that they're not fit and healthy enough to be diving, let alone to rescue me if it's a drama. But you seem to be quite passionate about it.
I'm hugely passionate about fitness and nutrition, and I think it's a massive problem in diving, especially in the UK. I don't see it quite so much abroad. I don't know if it's the lifestyle of people abroad, but in the UK, I mean, we've all seen the guys with twin sets at the quarries, like struggling up, red faced, and you think, oh, you know, come on, like, please don't keel over in front of me. I don't want to have to like deal with it. But yeah, like I think it's huge. Even if you go back to like the Navy tables and that, you know, they were designed around like fit, young, healthy, you know, Navy guys. And you know, I know you've got the gradient factors and stuff to try and allow for that. But for me, I know I'm big into it, and I know what I'm doing with it. But it's such an easy fix. It really gets to me when I hear someone like talking about, oh, what high gradient factor are you? Oh, I'm on 85 or I'm on 75, and it's like, but mate, you're like 4 stone too heavy. If you got rid of that, you know, you're just giving yourself so much better. Yeah, and I think it's really difficult because there's so much misinformation out there. You know, one person saying this diet, another person saying that diet, another, you know, you need to start running, you need to do this body weight, you know, this, that, and the other, and it's so difficult. There's no one fix for everybody. Every single person is different, and it's just finding what works for you. You know, I've got my ways of doing it for me, but you know, that wouldn't be for you. Or you know, if you've got a guy that's like quite overweight, he's not going to eat what I eat because you know he's not going to get anywhere. Or if you've got a really skinny guy that wants to put on a bit of muscle, because I think that can help as well with people. You know, it's just getting the information out to people, and you know, people just get confused and pissed off, I think, and then they just think, oh, sort of, you know, the burger vans and all that. You know, it's really difficult. But for me, everything starts with diet. You know, you see the guy, they'll be slogging, like out running, like really overweight, and it's like, you know, 95%, if not higher, of all health benefits are just from not being overweight. So, you know, if you can just get your weight down, you know, you can get it all under control, everyone's health will improve just tenfold straight away.
Mate, even the other week when we were diving, just before Christmas I think it was, I'm having a tuna butty and they're all having cheesy chips.
Yeah.
They're all taking this. It's not really winter food, that. I said, yeah, but cheesy chips are not conducive to not being, you know, not being a fatty, are they? So.
Yeah. Well, look at you, you're lean. So, you know, there's the difference, yeah, man. I don't winter food and all that, you know, I eat the same diet all the time pretty much. You know, I'm a massive diet geek, you know, I'm always experimenting. I basically learned, I mean, hands up, full disclosure, I've got no qualifications in diet or nutrition or anything, but I've researched it for years. I've tried every diet, bar vegan. You know, basically I drove to work, it was about an hour's drive away from me for 7 years. And for an hour there, an hour back, I listened to podcasts. And then if I didn't understand something, I would go and look it up. And then I would go and read PubMed, like study after study after study, try the different diets. I'd measure my blood. I would go to the doctors and black blood tests. I would, you know, measure everything that I could do. Yeah. I'd weighed every gram of food out for like 2 years. So I can look at a plate of food. I know roughly what the calories are. I know what the fat is, the protein. You know, I'm not suggesting that everybody goes into that, but like, that's what I did to sort of learn for myself. I think that it's just got to find a diet that you're happy with and a training plan that you're happy with as well, and that you can stick and adhere to. And once you've got that, you know, people always ask me to write them diets and write them training plans, and I hate doing it. I'd much rather help someone to understand like the bones of why you need to do certain things, and then you can fix it yourself, and you know, write a training plan for yourself rather than keeping on going to a PT and asking for this. And so I mean I'll write.
It can be quite simple though, can't it, really?
So simple.
Just do a bit of exercise, that's one.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do much, just go out for a walk for an hour. There's a girl across the road, she won't run, she won't swim, and she won't cycle, but she puts her headphones in and goes off for a walk for a couple of hours in the morning when the kids have gone to school. And she's lost loads and loads of weight. She doesn't even change the diet. She's just walking, which is more than the 2 hours on the couch.
There's a famous nutritionist called Stan Efferding. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's done the nutrition for some of the like top athletes in the world, like Thor Bjornsson and people like that. And he sort of, I don't know if it was him who invented it, but he certainly made it like popular with these 10-minute walks. So every time you have a meal, you go out for a 10-minute walk, just around the block, short. And the effect that has on digestion and blood pressure and, you know, all those sorts of things is incredible. Honestly, you know, everyone's had a full guts of food and then gone for a walk and felt better, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, you just that's just one simple thing. And I do find it's like marginal gains with everything. You're like, oh, I'll just do that, and that will help a little bit. And you know, there are a few real key things, like you've got to get your sleep on time, on like point. If you can get your sleep on point, and you know, get yourself, you know, not fat basically, you're well on the way. But diet, definitely start with that, and then you move on to the training.
What sort of balance have you found with your macros?
Well, I probably quite strangely for someone. Basically, if my diet would be described as a carnivore-ish, cyclical ketogenic diet, I would say, with a bit of carb backloading. So I eat mostly animal-based diet with some, at the moment anyway, it does change, but at the moment with some sort of fruits and a bit of vegetables thrown in, but normally after I train in the evening. So, and I do quite a lot of calorie restriction, fasting, things like that. I know that it's not magic. I know that effectively it's energy balance, calories in, calories out. But for me, I'm a greedy pig. I like to eat big meals. So if I can save a big meal for the evening and then go to bed with a full belly, I'm happy normally. I don't like going to sleep hungry. It's horrible.
No, I get to about 9 o'clock and I start getting, I wouldn't say hunger pains, but a need to sort of graze on something, whether it be nuts or something. So I quite happily could have like porridge in the morning, just a sandwich or something like that around lunchtime, and then wait till 7-8 o'clock. But it'd need to be an absolute feast. You know, it could be 4 courses, and I'd be absolutely fine with that. But the idea of it just sitting on my belly at 9 o'clock and feeling all.
Yeah, well, it's not ideal. It's not ideal to eat close to bed, really. I normally, you know, it feels like you want to, but then when you actually, you don't get as good a sleep. I've tracked my sleep as well, and I know my sleep is better if I don't eat for a couple of hours before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
So, you know, but it's difficult to do that when you sat on the sofa and, you know, Netflix is on and there's all food on the table. But you know, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty strict with myself, to be quite honest. But you know, if I've got a goal I want to achieve, I will focus on it, and that will always trump a hunger pang, because I'll be like, right, I want to, like, I've got some climbing goals this year that I want to do, and I need to be light for it. So that's why I'm training quite hard. You'll probably see a lot of climbing on my thing at the moment, because that's like I want to, but it's difficult because I'm, you know, I may not look that heavy, but for a climber I'm pretty heavy, so I could do with being a little bit lighter.
I started using that MyFitnessPal, and oh my god, I mean, how you did it for 2 years, I did it for about 6 months, just measuring everything out and trying to get this calorie reduction to, I think it was on about 1,500 a day. So dropping at least 1,000, mate. I looked good for it. I never put any size on, but I was quite lean. I've always been quite lean anyway, but I was quite cut up. I looked good in the mirror for me. I thought I did, but I was cold. I mean, I know I whinge about being cold anyway, but I was cold all the time. My body fat got down to like 8%. It was horrific. So I was never comfortable. I felt comfortable looking in the mirror. I looked good. You know, the amount of HIIT training I was doing and stuff like that, but.
You want to feel good. Well, there's no point in not feeling good, is there? If you don't feel good, then I find that that's definitely a side effect of being in a calorie deficit. If you're lean, is you do get cold. You know, you see the bodybuilders before a competition and they're all like wrapped up, and you know they do get cold. So, it's part of it. Unfortunately, you just got to suffer sometimes. Suffer for the game.
Stop crying like a little girl.
Yeah. I think that's like. I just think that with everything though, like anything that's worth doing is like you've got to suffer a bit for it. You know, I know like you don't like being cold, do you? But I don't like being cold. But like sometimes you just got to get cold and just take it and suffer, I think.
I've just touched my radiator now. I can't even touch it. It's like the surface of the sun, mate.
Really?
I've had a jump on all day.
I've got to turn the heating down in a minute. But kids must have turned it up.
Was it probably 2 months ago? I dived. Somewhere up in the Lake District, and I'd come out and it was pretty cold, and we had a chat about brown fat. You put me on some links and stuff, didn't you?
Oh, did you look into it? The cold thermogenesis. Yeah.
I don't fancy filling one of my wheelie bins up with cold water or having cold showers, but maybe that's the future, isn't it?
Try they reckon that like the cold to hot is meant to be better. So like get in the shower and then whack it onto freezing cold, and then until 3 or 4 minutes, and then whack it onto the hot, and then whack it onto the cold again. They say that in the research that I've done that is sort of more, but cold swimming's like the in vogue thing at the moment, and everyone seems to be doing it. I think it does freshen you up for sure. I spend a lot of time in cold water anyway, though, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna. I have done it, but Wim Hof, I mean, if you've looked into all the stuff that he can do, is absolutely incredible. Like, have you seen the video where he's in a block of ice, or and he controls? They put him in a block of ice, or not a block of ice, but a bath with like all of ice, and they keep him in there for an hour. And the first hour, his body temperature drops. Then, the first 20 minutes, sorry, it drops. Then the second 20 minutes, it stabilizes, and then the last 20 minutes, his corporal temperature starts to go up. It's incredible, and there's a neurotoxin video as well where they inject him with a neurotoxin, and he manages to control his own body's immune response to it. It's incredible. Look it up, honestly. You're like, is this real? But it certainly seems to be, and he's got a large following of people, and he certainly seems to be able to control his cold very well. So I think obviously exposing yourself to the cold, but you've done enough of that, so you're still struggling. So,
well, to be fair, changing dry suits now, so I've gone from the membrane into a neoprene. That's definitely helped. I find putting a bigger glove on, like a bigger outer dry glove, and then I've got room to move, a neoprene cuff, and fitted boots rather than I used to have rock boots on my other dry suit. So there's perhaps a little bit more room in there. It's more comfortable. Certainly that new hood, the KO1 hood that I got, the Spider.
Yeah.
I think that's tighter around my head. So it's a beautiful fabric. It really is, the neoprene. But it fits so snugly, whereas the one I had previously, maybe because it's a few years old, used to bubble a little bit, so you'd have that leakage every time you sort of tried to press that bubble down in your forehead. So you'd always have that circulation of cold to hot water.
Yeah.
I think I've got it nipped. I mean, obviously, sucking through a rebreather, it's kind of warm and ever slightly moisture, isn't it? So that helps. But I'm comfortable. I'm not even turning that electric vest on at the minute. It's absolutely good.
Yeah, we come in a cave because I've been diving in a wetsuit mostly in them. It's not so warm in there. No, no, not really. Not what I've got on. Wetsuit? Because the amount of sort of caving that it is to get to it is just not really realistic to be in a wetsuit. In a dry suit, you're sort of crawling along like muddy tunnel, pushing cylinders along in bags, and one of the places I've been going more recently, it's a fair way, and you would just never carry all the kit down there. So we've just been carrying little 2-litre cylinders and putting it on a weight belt. Right. So it's good. I mean, I'm very much seems to be like, I know it's, a lot of people say it, but I'm very much moving towards using the right thing for the right dive that I want to do. Like, that was always my goal. Like, I hate being restricted. So like, that's part of the reason why I do SRT stuff and, climbing. And then, I want to be, if there's a dive I want to do, I want to be able to do it. And I don't want to be like, you have to abseil into that, so you can't do it. So I learned that. Or, with the caving, taking little cylinders down there and stuff, it's, you can't take anything bigger. In dry suits, you just get so hot. But wetsuits I quite like diving in a wetsuit anyway. It's quite good, but it is a bit chilly. It's sort of pretty much 8 degrees year round, the water, so it gets a bit chilly in a wetsuit, but it's so physical. It's so physical though, getting there in the first place. Like, that's been the biggest surprise with me with like caves and mines, is just the physicality of getting the kit there is just so different from rocking up at Endak, or you got people like saying about walking up the hill at Endak, and you're like, really, mate? You want like, honestly, like some of the stuff, I'm dripping with sweat. You've just done like a whatever long depth dive for however long, and then you've got to like you're dripping with sweat. Your heart's like beating out your chest, and you're thinking, this isn't ideal for like decompression sickness, but I've been alright so far, touch wood. So
you climbing stuff, how well qualified are you, or is a lot?
I'm not qualified. Everything with me pretty much is self-taught. I was huge into like climbing when I was in my sort of early 20s. Yeah, I did loads of traditional climbing, bouldering, sport climbing and stuff. Yeah, got up, climbed a half decent grade, and yeah, I loved it. And I've sort of always kept it up to a point. But like everything, you can't do everything, all of the time. But I love it. And because I was a tree surgeon for years as well, my rope work and my rigging and stuff like that is pretty good. I'm just sort of starting now to learn sort of rigging in the SRT stuff for the caves, and it's all hopefully strings to the bow to move towards being able to do lots of cool stuff, hopefully.
Nice. The reason I'm asking is I was the same in my early 20s when I first joined the army. I went on a couple of courses and I bought all the gear. I was very much all the gear and nobody to climb with.
Yeah.
So I got bags and bags of rope in my loft and a couple of harnesses and loads of sticky boots and slings and carabiners and that. And then through work I did a bit of tree work as well. I kind of learned off videos from YouTube on how to rig Prussics and stuff like that, and ascend and descend, and it's just much like you say, there's only so many days in a week, and the weather's only ever so good, and then
that's why I like having loads. Yeah, that's why I like having loads of different things to go. Like if the surf's good, I'll go for a surf. If the weather's nice and clear and crisp, I can go for a climb. I mean, at the moment, sort of diving and caving kind of trumps everything. So if that's on the cards, I'm doing that. But sometimes the surf's really good. I mean, I surf my whole life, so I don't tend to do that quite so much unless it's really good now. But everything I've always done has always been on my own. So I love everything. I love doing solo. So when I go climbing, I'll just I'll either solo it or I'll set up like a top rope and put a shunt on, climb up and down. I love solo diving. I pretty much do that all the time if I could. I still like going with people as well, but I very much think of myself, if there's a self-contained unit when I'm diving, I prefer that, and I have done for sort of quite some time, really.
I do the same. Like the other day when I went, I got let down by the lad I was going with, and so I was completely open to the fact I'm qualified and competent and wanted to go diving. It was only Cape and Ray, so it's not like I'm going anything particularly extreme. But there does come a point for me where I kind of do miss having a buddy. Only this much. Certainly if I'm taking my camera in, I don't miss a buddy at all. It's when you come out and you go for a brew and there's no one you've recognised.
Yeah.
Or to share that experience with on the way home.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that I do though, if I can't find anyone to do it with me, I'm not going to let it stop me do it. So, so I'm just going to carry on doing it. Climbing's the same. I haven't really got any climbing partners at the moment, so I just go by myself. Luckily, I've just joined a caving club and some really cool people there, so I'm sort of got lots of people to go caving with at the moment. And divers is quite a few. And the more you sort of do, it's half the reason for putting it on, the social media, and people recognise your name, and then hopefully, you expand that sort of group and circle even more, and you've got more people to go with. So, but in terms of the actual sort of safety of it, I'd much prefer solo diving, and other stuff. Really, I like the self-reliance of stuff, and literally just completely being totally self-reliant on myself. My mum doesn't like it; she's not very keen. But... she's always telling me off.
My mum doesn't even know I dive, so who cares?
Doesn't she?
And I don't think he'd care. Right, well, that kind of nicely brings us on to talking about expeditions. So obviously I spoke to Phil Short a couple of months ago, which I think the kind of expeditions he does to an extreme level of where both of us would like to end up.
Yeah.
Going away for weeks or months at a time with, someone paying your bills in some respect, and coming back with some form of notoriety. You've achieved something, or you've discovered something. Not necessarily making the papers or, finding a big massive treasure, but actually achieving something is kind of what he tells me an expedition and exploration's really about.
Yeah, I mean, he's on that end of the scale where it's just, you can't even fathom being at that sort of level. I can't anyway. He's so, off into the stratosphere or whatever. But at the moment, just for me, it would just be nice to just probably, go on a trip, have like a goal, even if I'm, fitness is one of my sort of best things, even if I'm just lugging cylinders for someone, just to be a part of something that just found something new that nowhere else had been to, you know, and then put the time in. You never know, one day you could be lucky and you could be the person, you know, in that final bit of team. But, you know, it never interested me before, but, you know, the more I sort of get into it and the more I, you know, read about it and sort of like digest all the stuff that people are doing, it gets more and more exciting. Obviously it's more and more hard to find these places, but, you know, I just want to be involved in it. So that's why I'm doing everything I can to just be useful to someone.
Did you go to the Go Dive 2020 show in February?
Yeah,
in Coventry?
yeah.
We were there on the Sunday, and I had a good long chat with Monty Halls, and I genuinely, I'd not even seen him on the telly. I knew his name, thought he was a gardener, because there's another guy called Monty Don or something on the telly. So I got chatting to him, and turns out we had similar sort of backgrounds. We've both been in the military and stuff, and got chatting. He said, "You remind me a little bit of another guy that you might have heard of called Aldo Kane." I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of him," and I forgot what he was on, but he was at the time. But he'd done some show for the BBC where he went in an underground bunker for about 2 weeks, and they deprived him of natural daylight and a watch, and they kept waking him up and telling him to do loads of stuff. But apparently he cut his teeth, and this is how he got into TV and expeditions and working with like Steve Backshall and people like that. Clearly he's got a background in the military, and rope work was his big thing within the Royal Marines, but he'd got invited along on an expedition and he just grafted like mad and got on so well with people, and it was that sort of carried him through. So it wasn't, I'm not saying it's not, but it wasn't so much what he came with on paper, it was who he was when he arrived. So doing everything you can possibly do to appeal to someone that might need someone like us, and be willing to put in a proper shift.
I always think the first thing is just you just got to turn up. Like if I ever get an opportunity, you know, someone says, "Oh, we've got this trim, if you fancy going," I'll be there. I always turn up, and I'm always on time. You know, that's like the first step for me. You know, you always turn up, always be useful, try and be, you know, be yourself. There's no point pretending that you're something that you're not, because you get found out real quick. But, you know, just, you know, I always try and like take every opportunity that I can, because they don't come around a second time sometimes. That's what I did.
I thought you'd have cheated me off when I asked you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I just don't know why you want to interview me. I'm just average.
But you don't know. I mean, I'd class an average diver as someone that is competent and confident at what they do, but just dives every now and again, weekend. They're not really breaking new ground for themselves. They're just diving like the local quarry. That's average to me. People like yourself are still today who I look up to and aspire to get to where you're at. You know, you've been diving a Rebreather, like you said, you've got 100 hours or so. You've got a couple of thousand dives. Well, I've not. I've got 347 or something dives.
Okay.
I've probably got, I don't know, maybe, I have no idea how many hours, maybe 10, I don't know. But, you know, I've been diving 4.5 years. You've been diving 15 years. So you're not average to me. So maybe you might inspire someone who might listen to this.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I'd rather inspire people to be fitter and healthier and not eat that burger and just generally be healthier. Because especially at the moment, I think poor fitness is just highlighted even more. The thing is, the people that I'm diving with a lot of the time or being trained by, like, they are like, you know, so high up there. I'm looking up to them and I'm thinking, well, I'm so low down. I've got so much to learn, and you know, it's difficult to think of yourself like that. But you know, I like to think I'm solid. You know, feel like I'm a solid diver at my level anyway. But obviously, you know, in the cave diving realm, I'm just a tiny little speck right at the bottom, just trying to like learn. So
everyone starts at the bottom, don't they? No followers or no hours or no dives, and we've got to go from somewhere. And how do you get to it, that 10,000 hours or whatever it might be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fun doing it anyway, isn't it? It's not like it's horrible doing it. It's awesome
it's just
fun.
Fucking expensive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Rebreathers, they are expensive, aren't they? I actually prefer diving open circuit as well. So most of the time, I don't know why. Probably because I'm better on it. I think it probably is because I'm better at it. But I just like the simplicity of it. You know, I like the simplicity. I don't like washing out the lungs and that after pisses me off out in the garden in the rain after when I get home. I'm not a fan of that.
I'll tell you what surprises me, when you undo that loop from the exhale side and you drop it down, the amount of gloop that comes
It's
out
horrible.
of that,
It's horrible. Yeah, it is. I always have to give it, even if I don't like clean it properly, I at least wash that lot out. It's pretty horrible, isn't it? Yeah. Especially if you do it in between dives at especially at the moment at like one of the quarries, and you're like, because I hate that gargle that you get. It's horrible, isn't it? It pisses me off. I don't know if the quarries are even going to be open in the next few months. So
if this vaccine starts kicking off and people take notice, that's what's pissed me off recently. Even my eldest daughter, she went out the Monday before Christmas. We were in tier 3. Liverpool round the corner are in tier 2, so they all went out. Like, no wonder it's spreading. It doesn't mean you can go because next door's in a different tier. It means stay in and adhere to the rules. So a massive Barney, she didn't even come at Christmas because I'm like, you're not coming, and it's just, I wouldn't say it's all the youth, it's just lots of different people just flaunting the rules, isn't it?
Oh well, hopefully it'll come good, I'm sure, in the end.
So if you can plan anything for 2021 and you can make some concrete plans, what would they be?
Well, hopefully I did have a Scapa trip cancelled in November, so hopefully I'll go there because I've never been there. So I'd quite like to go and see. I know nothing about ships and shipwrecks really, even though I've done hundreds of dives on them. But I never know what any of it is. The boilers, that's about it. Everyone's like, oh, do you see this? Do you see that? And I come up like, my dad's a naval architect, and like he's like telling me, I've dived on the Scylla, and he's like, he did the last refit on the Scylla before it was sunk, and he's like asking me stuff about it, and I'm like, Dad, honestly, I don't know anything about it. So yeah, but I'd like to go to Scapa and see the big wrecks up there, which hopefully will happen. I'd love to go to Bell Island. That's my and Montola mine as well. I'd like to go there.
Where's that?
That is, I think it's Finland, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure. It's under the ice anyway. Right. It's under the ice somewhere. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I really want to go to France this year and dive the caves and hopefully take my Rebreather, and they're a bit bigger there and a bit easier, more easy access for that sort of thing. So hopefully, hopefully that'll come ahead. I had a good, was it last year? I can't remember now. Yeah, I had some good foreign trips last year. I went to Socorro last year in Egypt. Well, I went to Egypt in March, so I sort of had my fill of like tropical water diving. I'm going to do some cold water stuff now, I think. But yeah, you got loads just cancelled, haven't you?
Yeah, keep the cold water stuff to yourself though. Hopefully, if we can get down to South Africa for the Great Whites, that'll be great.
Mexico off the cards now.
Yeah, we got the refund. Obviously, it got cancelled because of the flight, so we got everything back either via a refund or by the insurance. So we lost like 50 quid overall, so not terrible. But that was last year. Next year we've got different ideas. So shark diving's the one for me this year. See how we go.
Yeah, you like sharks?
Well, they interest me massively, but I want to get some use out of this camera, and I want to learn stuff about it. I've done enough wrecks for me now. I still have this lust for rust, but I've not seen enough big stuff in the water yet. Mm-hmm. So, I'm so new to it. I'm still like trying to find my niche direction as such.
Yeah. Socorro was really good actually. There was a lot of good stuff there. Loads of sharks, Galapagos, all the Galapagos sharks. Tons of mantas, whale sharks. Well, the mantas there were just absolutely huge. I just can't fathom how big they were.
In big numbers as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess not like not when you see like 30 of them in the Maldives all spinning around, but yeah, like probably like 5 or 6 in your shot at any one time. But they were just, I've seen mantas in like Costa Rica and like the Maldives and that. But these were just huge, like the giant Pacific ones, black ones. They were. I mean, I've got some photos of me, like I look like a speck underneath them. Do you know what I mean? They're absolutely massive. And snorkeling with whale sharks is cool. And the Galapagos shark, Roca Partida was probably in the sea. That was probably my favourite dive site I've been to. I would say, yeah. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Just this rock pinnacle. It's like the last bit of landmass before Hawaii off of Mexico. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, you know, it's just sort of like a vertical. It's not very big. It's, I don't know, probably about maybe 50 meters long, something like that, 50, 100 meters long. Just rock, just sticking out. It's just covered in bird shit. You know, and then it just goes straight down to sort of, you know, thousands of meters. So it's sort of like everything just migrates to that before it goes across to Hawaii and stuff. Yeah, incredible.
There just doesn't seem enough time and money in the bank to get everything that's, you know, if you had a list, there's just everywhere, isn't there? You could go everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not into wrecks, but I would love to go to truck. I have to admit. Yeah, I would love to go there, and I would love to see, you know, some of the real spectacular reefs, and, you know, like Cipadan or you know, some of those. But yeah, there's just the list is endless, isn't it? That's the thing. And now I've added caves to the list. So I mean, I would love to go to Mexico and go, you know, the cenotes there, and you know, just because. No, I'm not saying it'd be easier, but it would be a whole different experience compared to what I've been doing in here in this country. That's for sure.
I think what's probably pulled us away from it slightly is Ali's just not that bothered. You know, she doesn't particularly want to increase her level of training into caves. If you said, do you want to go next month, and we've got the money and we've got the time, I'd go and quite happily do intro to cave, because why not? You know, but it's not of an interest to her, and I do want to remain at a level that we can dive together, which we can for now. In fact, she can dive deeper than me if I stay on my rebreather. She can still go deeper than me. I'm limited to 40, aren't I?
So they say. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good fun. I don't think it's for everybody, obviously, but I mean, I didn't think it was for me. I was literally just, if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I'd ever cave dive, I would have just been point blank no. I would have betted every penny I had on that I wouldn't. Yeah. So, for times change, so you never know. She may want to do it sometime.
Yeah, well, I'll let her get over that, and then we'll do it when it suits. But some of them caves pictures that I've seen, or videos that you've been putting on Instagram, mate, them holes are tiny. They look it anyway. So
dry caving ones, or the cave? Yeah.
Dry ones, mate. Wow.
Yeah, that's took a bit of, because that was my sort of biggest sort of fear, I think. But again, like, you know, sometimes I think the video, you see something on video and you think, God, that looks horrible. But when you're actually there, it's not so bad. I think fear is like it's quite a strange emotion, really, isn't it? It's like one of those emotions you kind of like give yourself, a bit like guilt. You know. You know, I've because of all the sort of sport type things that I've done, I've got quite a good way of like working through fear in my head. It's the same as when I'd like sort of do like a solo rock climb, or like, you know, I think to myself, right, why am I scared right now? Because, you know, I get scared, I shit myself. Like the first time I ever did a cave dive, I was on my own. The guy that I was going to do it with had dropped out, and it was in Wales, so it was just like a 4-hour drive for me as well.
Yeah.
So he dropped out the day before because he had a family emergency, which is fair enough. And then I just thought to myself, oh God, I really want to do it. I've been building up to this for weeks. The conditions were perfect. I've been keeping an eye on it, and I was sort of like, I'm going to go and do it by myself. So I couldn't sleep all night because I was like really scared. And then I got up at like 4:30 in the morning, drove all the way to Wales on my own, rang my mate to do my call out. And, you know, I sat there and I was thinking, right, just analyse everything. Like, so I've done the training, my kit's all good, I've checked it all. You know, am I scared? Because is there any reason for me to be scared? And I was like, well, you know, there's nothing really. It's just that I am scared. There's nothing stopping me from doing it. Yeah. And I did it, and everything went fine. And I came back and I rang him back and said, yeah, it was all cool. And, you know, that's probably one of the sort of proudest moments I've had, really, because I sort of worked through everything, used all the sort of training and did it. But, you know, sometimes if I'm scared of something, you just don't do it. Sometimes you just got to trust your intuition, I think, a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at with being on this Rebreather now, because it's so new. I'm still trying to follow the checklist so definitively and make sure, because I haven't quite got that muscle memory of putting it together or taking it apart or cleaning it. I don't want to make a very simple basic error that then when I'm in the water I realise, oh, fucking hell. But I mean, I know we can always bail out, but I want to start as a mean to go on, you know, be and confident in myself.
Yeah, I have to admit, CO2 is always the one that sort of scares me a little bit, the CO2 breakthrough or whatever. And, you know, I'm always very careful with that O-ring. And in this bow, you've got like this one O-ring that if you leave out, you know, it's pretty important. And I've always got it there, like looped over the top of the canister, so I can't forget it. But to the point where I've done like a lot of, you know, you got the free diving apps where you can like increase your CO2 tolerance. So I've done, sometimes I'll do like CO2 tolerance training. I don't know if it'll help, but you know, it gives me a bit more sort of peace of mind that I could deal with a little bit more. But yeah, it's well worth doing it until you've got it. And well, you know, it's always worth doing it well to the checklist if that's the way your mind works, for sure. I always, whenever I dive my rebreather, I always set it up the day before. Always have it in my garage. You know, I set aside an hour or so, and I just potter around and do it quite slowly and make sure it's all right and everything. Turn it on, make sure everything's working all right, and then, you know, obviously the nature of rebreathers is sometimes, you know, the next day comes and something's not right and doesn't hold that test like it did the day before, which is really annoying. But it's pretty good fun, isn't it?
It is.
So all I would say though, if anybody wants like me to help them, like with diet or anything like that, so I'm not going to write a plan out for anyone, but if anybody did want like just a point in the right direction, just there's like half a dozen things I could say to anybody that would like really help them with losing weight, getting better sleep, whatever it is, then just drop me a line and I'm more than happy to help, because it's a real passion for me. I'd love it if I could help somebody sort their, you know, diet or, you know, exercise out and get a bit fitter.
Yeah, well, sleep's always been certainly for like the last 10, maybe 12 years, has always been a drama for me. And when I stopped worrying about it and did a little bit of investigation into how I can improve my sleep, not why my sleep was interrupted, somebody was telling me about this an enzyme or whatever it might be called tryptophan. Have you come across that before? Yeah,
tryptophan. It's a precursor to serotonin, I think, as far as I know. Yeah, well, you can get there's a supplement called 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan, that a lot of people take, to aid with getting to sleep. Yeah.
Well, this lady I was talking to, it was like an ex-girlfriend's stepmom or something like that, and she worked in occupational health, and she was trying to explain to me the benefits of this tryptophan and how it would help me fall asleep. But you had to sort of believe it. I almost thought it was a bit like a placebo effect. But she said just warm milk can give you a boosted level of it, and a banana. And I was like, nah, I don't believe this. And I don't like warm milk, so I added like a really level teaspoon of hot chocolate to it. Just microwave this milk for maybe a minute. It wasn't boiling up, but you could almost drink it in a wanna. Add that as I was getting ready for bed. Do that, do my teeth, get in bed, and have nothing on. So I don't mean naked, I mean like no phones, no iPads. And just try and relax. And the thing that with me, my brain wasn't switching off. I was constantly talking or thinking in my head of what was happening tomorrow or the day after, or excited about something. And she said, what you can do is start saying the word the. Just say it over and over, because it doesn't start a question. And it's almost like counting sheep. And honestly, it just worked.
Did it?
I repeated it for a couple of nights and it seemed to get better, but I'll be honest, I think the actual thing that was stopping me going to sleep was the amount of caffeine, because I was having brew after brew after brew all day. And since I knocked it on the head a month or two ago, mate, my sleep pattern has just been amazing.
That's
like
it.
A baby.
The three things that really help sleep is vitamin D supplementation if you can't get out in the sun. Magnesium is another one. That's really good. What was the third I was going to say? Can't remember now. But yeah, vitamin D is like top. Magnesium is top, like Epsom salt bath, something like that. Get that in. That 5-hydroxytryptophan is pretty, I think it does work. I've used it from time to time. I wouldn't say for anyone to use melatonin, because you can get a bit too used to it. That's the sleep hormone, yeah?
Yeah.
But yeah, they're pretty good. But vitamin D for me is blue light glasses. That was what I was going to say. Yeah, stick them on. Have you not got them?
No.
No, oh, just get a pair of, go on Amazon, blue light blocking glasses, wear them through the evening, especially if you're sat on your laptop a lot. It make a massive difference to your sleep.
Well, certainly with like the latest iPhone and the iPad and that, you can turn on like an evening or nighttime function, so it drops a lot more orange, I think it is, into the colour.
But honestly, yeah, blue light blockers, like 20 quid, 25 quid, whatever on Amazon, it does make a big difference. Into the fact where I don't wear them because I'm falling asleep at 8:30 on the sofa if I wear them, so I have to put them on a bit later. Yeah.
Certainly, putting a pair of headphones in now and a podcast on, because I can't settle straight away and I do get quite fidgety. My head will get absorbed into whatever is going on in the podcast, and I tend to daydream or night dream as such, or awake dream, however you want to term it, around what's going on there, and I'll forget the world. So before 10 minutes of that podcast, I'll be asleep, which I wouldn't be normally. So that tends to be my go-to now. Well, I guess everyone's different, and everyone needs to find a balance that works for them, whether it be diet, fitness, or sleep pattern, I guess.
100%. It's so hard to find the right diet, to find the right exercise plan for you. It's pretty difficult, but there are some tricks, and there are definitely some things that help. But yeah, it's just knowing where to start, isn't it, after time. Normally people just, their first thought is, I've got to start training. That is normally everyone. So they'll go out and start running, and then 2 weeks later, when they've got a bad knee, they think, I can't run. So they're sat on the sofa, and then the biscuits start, and, it's like a vicious circle. I can't exercise because I've tried and I've got a bad knee. But, it's much easier I would do like 6 weeks. I wouldn't even think about exercise necessarily. I would just go for walks. And then just sort your diet out for 6 weeks. Once you've got a handle on that, you probably you could lose a stone or two in 6 weeks if you just by cutting out the crap, and then and then you start your exercise slowly and finding out what you like, and it all helps. It would help with diving massively. I think for a lot of people.
We've kind of gone with just not buying bread or white bread specifically, buying more of a granary loaf. Not eating into sometimes I have it 3 meals a day. Bread, toast in the morning, sandwich for lunch, bread to mop up whatever I'm having at dinner.
Yeah.
But cutting out like biscuits and crisps, if they're not in the house, I can't eat them.
No.
So I'm eating more bananas now, which is obviously adding to the fibre of my intake, which then has a great cholesterol beating knock-on effect the more fibre you have, and my cholesterol's a little bit higher than they want it. So why not?
You might want to do a bit of research into cholesterol, because it's not all as bad as what you think. I know it all changes and goes. It all goes round in circles, doesn't it? But cholesterol, high cholesterol, when you look like you do, I would definitely not be as worried about it as maybe what they say to be. But my cholesterol would be ridiculously high, I would say, because I eat so many eggs. I dread to think. Last time I went and had a blood test, the doctor said to me, I just cannot believe how high your cholesterol is when everything else is so low. But it's what I expected because of the diet I was eating. But he said if everything else didn't look like that, I would be telling you to get on medication. But no, I wouldn't be having it. So
well, I had unfortunately a couple of mates. One died and one had a stroke, relatively young, so maybe 10 years older than me. And they were not the kind of people that kept a check on their health or their weight, or certainly not their diet. It'd be high stressful jobs, eating shit day in, day out, drinking of an evening, perhaps a couple of cans, and not really training in a way that was conducive to overall health. And that sort of kick-started me into going every 12 months to my GP and having they call it a well-man clinic. So you have blood tests, weight, height, well, not that your height changes much, but you do your blood pressure, your belly measurement, things like that, and give you an overall score of your likelihood to have heart problems. As we get older, it creeps in anyway. But the cholesterol I was seeing ever so slightly, gradually getting up there to the point that they said, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" And I was having cheese at least 3 meals a day, and obviously shit bread probably, and probably drinking too much. And I sort of knocked that on the head and changed the way I ate and added more veg in. And that crept back down to a level that they were quite happy with, but not to the point where they were saying you need medication because you've got a box of eggs in you every day.
Oh yeah, I probably eat about, it's not ridiculous, but probably 6 to 8 a day, I would say.
Wow, that's not ridiculous. I don't have that a week.
Yeah, I usually have 6 for breakfast, but my breakfast is normally around 2 p.m. So, wow. Yeah, and then I eat a lot of steak and, you know, a lot of yogurt and cheese and things like that. So, but yeah, just look into everything. Like, don't believe, like, a lot of, like, all the nutritional stuff and guidelines is so outdated now. You know, it's really worth looking, you know, really doing some research into knowing the numbers and sort of like the areas where they want your parameters to be. They're not, you know, they're so wide a lot of the time, you know, like fasting blood glucose and things like that. And, you know, I would prefer to have mine much lower than what they average, you know, what they like people to have. I mean, my girlfriend's diabetic as well. So you know, she doesn't follow that. I taught her how to eat, which was completely different to how the diabetic clinic taught her to eat. And then when she went back for a test after 6 months, they said, wow, your blood test results are the best they've ever been. Your H1AC is like so low. And she said, they said, whatever you're doing, just keep eating it. So she has, and, you know, she's doing all right at the moment. She's not on any medication at all. So.
Wow, that's mega.
Yeah, it's good. And it was pretty simple. You know, she likes a biscuit, like they all do. But, you know, I just got her to knock carbs and sugar out for the majority of the day. She just has 1 carb meal a day, and it's got everything sort of pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
yeah, I know, mate.
No more chips.
No. I know. The worst thing about chips is what they're cooked in.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, even oven chips, they're all coated in shite to make them cook in oven, aren't they? So
yeah.
They know better.
Oh man, my girlfriend said to me, "Don't start going on. Just don't," because I start talking really fast and like trip myself up, and, you know, because I'm just so into it and I research so much into it and stuff as well. So
awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, like I say, anyone wants any help, I'm there to help for sure.
Awesome. So how can people go about finding you then? Where are you?
Just Spud Cook on Instagram. I'm quite happy to someone to slide into my DMs. No, I'm joking. Yeah, and I'm on Facebook if people want to add me. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I put on quite a lot of training stuff, as you know. But, you know, I'm just doing my thing really. I would do it regardless of whatever. So yeah. I quite because I do everything on my own a lot of the time. Well, not everything, but a lot of stuff on my own. I quite enjoy like setting up the camera and filming, doing it and stuff, like especially climbing and stuff like that. It gives you something to do, doesn't it? Absolutely. Keeps me off Netflix.
A bit of a purpose in it. That's what I like about doing stuff like that. It just gives me a reason to go and do it rather than just doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah, I love, like, you know, just setting my alarm for like 5 a.m. on a Sunday, getting up and like walking out to the crag and doing a climb, or driving up and doing a dive or whatever. You know, I love that. You know, I love getting up and getting something done. It's cool.
Well, hopefully, mate, we can meet up in an all too distant future, because our paths have got to cross closer than. Certainly, if I'm down in Cardiff, you're not a million miles away that weekend, that midweekend. No,
I mean when Wales is open, I'm there quite regularly because you know there's some good. I aim to spend quite a lot of time in Wales actually next year, hopefully, because there's some really good caves in that there. So I'm really looking forward to getting there.
I can come and be your brew bitch, mate, for when you come out. maybe eventually.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Right then, go on then. I'll go and get some dinner now. Thanks for coming.
All right, yeah. All right, cheers, mate.
Take it easy, buddy.
Bye.
See you later. Cheers.
Thanks very much to this week's guest for sharing their stories and interesting tales about the underwater world. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did recording it. For more information on this episode, take a look at the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and follow us on Instagram for the latest news. Thanks again to Northern Diver International and those of you who have supported me through Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you on YouTube.